Good evening and welcome to the July 17th, 2017 meeting of the Merrimack School Board. If you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're on to item number 2, which is public participation. If anyone from the public would like to come speak at the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we will close public participation. On to item number 3, which is the proposal for a partnership with Manchester Community College to establish an early college automotive program for Merrimack High School students. I invite to the table Assistant Principal Peter Bergeron, and from Manchester Community College, Dr. Susan Heward, Megan Kahn, and the instructor who is not the one on our agenda. So, Todd.
So
thank you. Welcome.
So while these folks take their seats, if I could just
please do.
So I just Mark Belrose, who is the department chair for automotive technology, is unfortunately under the weather tonight. But we're really happy to have Todd McConis, who is a professor of automotive technology at Manchester Community College, in his place. So we're really happy to have Todd with us. And again, I'd like to just thank Dr. Heward and Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs, Megan Kahn, for being here tonight. And just before I turn it over to them, if I could just, by way of brief introduction, just set the stage. So we have had the good fortune of having a automotive instructor at Merrimack High School for many, many years, on whose retirement prompted a challenge that gave us another person out of the blue. We were very lucky to have that person. And then after a period of time, life intervened, and so we found ourselves without an instructor again. And at that time, we realized that unless we tried to be creative, we were very likely going to find ourselves at the end of the line for our automotive technology instruction at Merrimack High School. And then, luck being what it is, it's always good to be hopeful. We were able to establish a conversation with Manchester Community College, who exhibited great interest in working with Merrimack School District in a partnership that would reestablish an automotive program with a lot of very interesting opportunities for students, and with really a very 21st century contemporary program. And so that's what these folks are here tonight to talk to you about, to give you a little bit more detail about that program. And then after that, before we open up to questions, I'll just close with a couple of more pieces of information. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hi, everyone. As Mark says, my name is Megan Kahn, and I'm the Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs at Manchester Community College. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what early college is and how we think this could really help Merrimack High School serve some of their students. Early college is a program that was developed several years ago. It's available at all the community colleges in New Hampshire, but everyone offers it a little bit differently. So it's available for New Hampshire high school students as long as they're 16 years old. They're enrolled in actual college classes happening on the community college campus. So students would come to MCC, they'd be MCC students, they'd have the opportunity to get an MCC ID, they'd have the same opportunity for support and services that our current students do. They would really get the full college experience. What's it like to be a college student? What opportunities does going to a community college afford you? They get to see all of the great equipment we have in the automotive program, things like that. They're also awarded college credit. So depending on what they do after high school, that credit is available for them at MCC, or if they're looking elsewhere, they could bring that college credit with them if it's applicable to their next degree program. But one of the things that we find is allowing students in high school the opportunity to try college really gives them some great self-confidence that when they're done at high school, college is a great option for them. So for students that are thinking about college, not quite sure about college, or want to go to college but have no idea what they want to do, early college is an opportunity for them to try that out while they're still in high school. And because financial aid isn't available to high school students, these early college classes are offered at a reduced tuition rate for students. So for the specifics that we've been working with Merrimack High School to see if we'd be able to offer, we're looking at our automotive, the first class in our automotive program. This is the Maintenance and Light Repair course. This is a 4-credit college class, and they'll be getting both the high school credit as well as the college credit. So this allows them to get kind of this dual enrollment credit where they take credits back to Merrimack High School, which allows them to graduate on time, and they also have credits at Manchester Community College. We designed a course that's specifically designed to fit into their high school schedule. So for automotive students that come to MCC, this course usually runs from 8 to 5. It's all day, it's a long course. And we know that that's not really going to work for a high school student's schedule. So we've broken it up into 2 different time periods. It's going to be Wednesday and Thursday from 12:45 to 5 p.m. And buses would pick students up at Merrimack High School, take them to MCC, and then take them back to Merrimack High School when they're done. So students are leaving from a place that they're comfortable with, they're going to MCC with all their friends that are taking this class, and they're coming back to the high school where they can get rides home, meet their parents, pick up their cars. The enrollment requirements for this course is students do have to be 16 years old. They need to have a driver's license, and they need to have a clean driver's record. This is really important because this goes back to having the full college experience. They're treated like college students, so anybody entering our automotive program needs to have these requirements. In order to work in the automotive industry, it's very important that students have a clean driving record. So we introduce that right from the very point of admissions to our students. So for somebody who's just turned 16, they've just gotten their driver's license, this is a great option for them to know, why is this important? If I'm interested in working in the automotive field, I better be careful to keep those points off my license. And then we need permission from Merrimack High School. This really allows us to know the student knows what they're getting into, and then they're not taking a class with us that's going to prohibit them from graduating. So they've worked out their schedule with Merrimack High School so that they'll still graduate on time. And then Associate Professor Todd McConis is going to talk a little bit about this specific class and then some of the kind of cool advantages of being an auto student at MCC.
How you doing? I'm Todd McConis, one of the auto instructors at MCC, also a graduate from MCC. The college credit that we provide the students is transferable to the other community colleges with the automotive classes that they're going to be taking. So they could transfer to one of the other colleges. They can come to MCC in order to get that credit. The experiences that the students are going to get, the way our program there is designed is we're a manufacturer program, so we not only have a general automotive program, but we have multiple manufacturers that are there, which donate cars, tools. So we have a lot of the higher end cars that have been donated. We have the newest technology tools, scan tools, tire machines, alignments. So it's a real shop experience that these students are going to be getting. It's not, we tend to talk, some classes are more of a shop class, like bring your car in and look at it. We're really going through the cars, and they're getting like the full automotive dealership high-end experience at these that they would get at a dealership. So the students will come out with a good amount of experience, not only just doing simpler tasks like oil changes and tire rotations, but they may start to see some scan tool use and special tool use that will make them much more employable when they get out there, because they're not just looking at using a screwdriver, using a ratchet type of thing. They may be reprogramming tire pressure sensors, which I'm sure if everybody has a newer car, that lights come on at some point, and you go, why does this thing come on every time the weather changes? So they're going to learn all that stuff when they're going through our program. And our program is accredited through NATEF, which is Automotive Service Excellence, their accreditation program. And we've gone through our program, so our program is set up to meet those standards that they've set. Employment outcomes. Right now, well, this kind of touches, I guess, on the industry needs too, but there's about 500 openings they're guessing for automotive students right now throughout the state of New Hampshire. The goal for having the students come out of the program would be what we call a D-level technician. Technicians are usually rated an A to D level, A being the highest end highest certified, being able to fix basically anything on the car, and it kind of works its way through. D-level technician is basically making someone that's absolutely employable at a small shop or a dealership that can go in there and be able to make a living and be able to basically do all the tasks that are required for that entry-level position.
Todd, when you're saying the program, you're talking about the high school course, correct?
Right.
Thank
That Auto 101 course is what I'm referring to. So that's a MLR, so maintenance light repair, which is what we consider a D-level technician would be doing. So, like I said, that would be your coming into a shop or a dealership, and that would be what you'd be doing right as you walk in the door. So, I'm like. Oh, the hourly salary typically is between $12 and $14 an hour, starting with that D-level technician. And as you get more experience and get more training, which these shops and these dealerships will provide, it can go up to $100,000 or more. So there is the potential to go, if you put the time in and put the effort in, to make that much amount of money in the dealership in that field, and independent shops. I shouldn't just say dealerships, both. So it is a very, very good industry, and we're really looking for people right now. So the more people we can get in, and more employable, we're going to have everybody. So.
Can you talk about how it covers the 2-year program? What's in that class for a 2-year rotation? The time period.
You mean what, like task stuff we're doing?
Just so.
Yeah, sorry. So one of the things that this course does is this course will actually cover what a student would learn in a 2-year vocational high school program. They would take classes their junior and senior year at the high schools. They're going to learn this at our class from late August to early December. So this is condensed. It is going to be, a college class, but as Todd said, when they're done with this one class, they have opportunity for employment while they're figuring out what their next step is. Whether that step's MCC, somewhere else, something completely different, this actually gives them a skill that they can go out into the workforce, and as you see, there are jobs, there is need. So this class does cover about 2 years worth of work for a high school auto program. So that gives you a little bit of an overview about the specifics of the auto program, the opportunities for them to kind of be a part of a college class, and really how we think this could help Merrimack High School students. So at this point, if Mark, if you want to wrap up with anything, and we can take questions.
Perfect. So just to give a little bit more information. So we wanted the students of enrolled juniors and seniors, the students and the parents of those folks, to understand what we were able to potentially offer here. So with the very flexible support of Manchester Community College, we were able to put together an information session. It happened last Wednesday. We had about 20 folks or so representing 6 families to go up to the college, because we felt like there was no substitute for being present and to see the unbelievable facilities to help students really realize that this is possible for them. So at that time, we asked folks, because we knew that the board needed to have some sense of commitment on the part of students, and the college certainly needs to know whether they've got commitment. So we asked the 6 families representing up there that night if they would be interested in signing just a kind of a non-binding agreement that they would like to have their students enroll, and 6 for 6 signed. The next day, I wrote a letter to all of the parents, the same group who we invited up to Manchester Community College for that evening, sent another letter to that same cohort of people, all of whom had enrolled in automotive courses for this year, and said that you missed a great opportunity, but we summarized what the opportunity was with some details, and then said that we need to have commitment from you, again in a non-binding way, by Monday, July 31st. So at the next board meeting, we will be able to give you hard numbers about the numbers of students who are signing up for this course. It's also been very exciting because the college has just been filled with ideas and possibilities, and there is a hope that later in the fall we can come back to you with additional conversation about how we might extend the program even earlier down to the sophomore level. This is not the purpose of tonight. Tonight is to talk about what we have been able to put together to present to you so that our enrolled juniors and seniors have a place to go rather than to come to a dead end. I'm forecasting for you, however, that there's hope that we can expand that program a little bit more, so that'll come at another time. As Megan mentioned, we have, and Peter can speak to it, he and his team, Ken and Rich, are really handcrafting schedules for those students so that they can attend on these 2 days, they're block days, Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then still have the full high school experience as well. As far as cost goes, the rate, if we were to have 10 students sign up, it would be roughly in the $17,000 range. That would include tuition and tools for students. 2 students would share a set of tools. If we were to be fortunate enough to get upwards of 20 students enrolled, that cost could be as high as $35,000, tuition and tools. And it might be that the amount that would be owed by the district would be somewhere less than that, but quite certain it wouldn't be higher than $35,000. And we have, in our existing budget for automotive, have those funds available for this purpose. So I'm happy to conclude that now and answer any questions that you may have of me, of Pete, or the team from Manchester Community College.
So I have Cindy and Andy.
Okay, so just a clarification on the cost. This isn't something we would pass back to the students, right? This is something that we would realize as a district.
Yes.
Good. All right.
Andy, if you dare.
I don't know, he's there. It balances, or you balance. Okay, I have many questions, and I'll start with a couple, and then I'll let other people. So, in other districts where you have community college associations, they have something that they call Running Start programs, where you do, like my wife teaches math in another district, the Running Start program for calculus and statistics that she teaches. There is skin in the game by the students because they're getting college credit. What I've heard you say is that our budget is going to cover the full cost based out of the budget. And the added benefit is these students are going to be doing it in a shorter, compressed time and walking away with college credits at no cost to them, which is a little different than the way other districts do it because there's at least some cost incurred because they're getting an added benefit of a college credit, so to speak. So was any consideration or discussion about that done?
So that is an added benefit, and actually it's a plus for students in this program. The distinction here, though, is that if it weren't for this partnership, there would be no automotive program. In the case that you described, we still run business classes, we still run photography classes and so on. So the distinction is that those parents would choose to get the college credit and then would pay for that privilege. But the program still exists. So this is a case where without this partnership, the program would not exist. And we've taken the position that it's the district's responsibility to provide this programming to students because we have many students for whom this is, for some students, it's the reason they come to school. And for other students, they really wish to have a career in the automotive industry, and we would not be able to provide any means for them to do that at all. So it would mark the end of a program. So that's why the district would be willing to do this.
So can I ask a follow-on to this?
It's still your floor, yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
No,
I didn't
you
know.
yield when you're done.
Okay. So the follow-on question is, you mentioned that you approached the parents and students who had signed up or shown interest in this class. The dynamics of the class you're offering are different. Have you thought than what was originally advertised? Because now instead of being a high school class, it's now a college credit class, especially at no cost. In order to get the volume that you're looking for, have you considered expanding it to the entire high school body, explaining that there's a new opportunity to maybe get interest in this sort of different class than what was originally advertised?
No. The goal was that we had a certain number of students, and Pete, feel free to chime in, we had a certain number of students who had registered for automotive with the hopes that we could fill that spot. And our first interest was in making sure that those students, because you hear Pete and Rich and Ken every year talk about our effort is to try to satisfy the requests of students. And so that was our first goal, was to make sure that this would be available to them so that they could have a continuation of their program. What I alluded to a few minutes ago about the possibility, and I say the possibility because we have still work to do with the team from MCC, the possibility exists, however, that we could have that expand to sophomores. But there's not much more to say about that because this is really a very early stage. We're developing this whole partnership almost as we go. But so that would open it up to more students.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is because you talked about minimums, right? If you get 10 students, then there's this. If you get 20, there's this. So I guess the question is, if you don't get enough that are interested, would you expand it? Or if you got more than 10 but not 20, would you expand it? I guess what you're offering is something materially different than what you had originally offered. It's very different. I mean, getting a college credit at no cost is a fairly unique thing. So I guess the question was, I mean, and this question of the board is, should they offer it more broadly than just to the limited number? That's my only question, is whether that should be considered.
So is there, I think a long-term answer to that, or a short-term answer? I guess what's the time, I think, can I rephrase your question? What would be the timeline if we didn't get that 10 students to be able to re-engage, to re-communicate to a broader audience that would take interest in this course to get up to that 10 to 20? So is there an opportunity, like seniors that have elective space left, that kind of thing? Do you have, like what I would call a plan, like a pocket of people that could be engaged that you think would meet that interest level?
Sound check. All right. As Dr. McLaughlin, I'm not sure, Mark, if you gave a number, but there were a little over 40 students who showed interest in an automotive class. A little over 40. So then a letter was sent out to all those families. In addition, we called all those students. And at this time of year, you have families that are on vacation, students who are working, students who are involved in athletic events. So, I truly believe that, we will get more than 10 students. I think this is an opportunity that does not come down, the road very often. We often talk about being college ready and work ready, and here it is right here. It's right at, the footsteps where, a student can take this, course, a junior or a senior, one semester. It is a commitment, and, they're expected to do, it's a college course, and, they're going from, 12 to 5, and they're working hard. They have to pass all the safety courses, but, talk about they're going to be work ready. They're going to be ready to step into a job. So, I believe that's, it's such a great opportunity.
Well, it's good that you shared that number, because you said 6 came to the on-site visit, and then you sent it out more broadly. Didn't know if there were like 10 that you did it, but 40 makes you feel a little more comfortable that the base is broad enough.
Okay. I think
and part of it, and we've done this in the past, and Rich St. Pierre does a really good job with the schedule and being creative. When we work with our students who go to Alverne, Nashua North, and Nashua South, we have to be creative, because some of these students, we have to postpone some of their courses, okay, in order for them to get in the program. Because sometimes in the North, South, or Alverne, they're taking the classes, you know, in the morning, and then it switches, you know, as they become seniors. So we'll have to be creative, and we'll work with those families.
Okay, are you done, Andy? Okay, so I have Michael, then Naomi, then Cinda, in order of hands.
So I've got quite a few questions, actually. One, I'm a big proponent for the trades and actually expanding them for Merrimack. I am a little concerned that does this actually lessen the trades, because now we do not have programs because of the circumstance that we're at for the children that are in freshman, sophomore year? Are we actually providing any automotive classes at this time? Well, I should say prior to this year.
At this time, we will not be. There is the possibility, you know, other than the course through MCC, and there's the possibility, as Dr. McLaughlin mentioned, that second semester we would have sophomores who would be enrolled in a course, introductory class to automotive.
So to answer my question, we are lessening what classes were provided in the past at this point because of the circumstances that we've had with trying to hire.
Correct.
So the goal this year, if I could just clarify, so again, the goal this year, I mean, we're trying to fix, you know, a problem and then try to build something that will last into the future. The immediate goal was that we have juniors and seniors who, without some intervention, would have come to an abrupt end in their training. So our first goal was to make sure that they were responded to so that they could have a completion and a really good contemporary 21st century education. That's what this addresses. What I'm trying to share is that, you know, this is new, and when we're still working with our partners and we've still got some things to work out, our goal would be to expand it in ways that I don't feel comfortable sharing right now because it's still so new, but really interesting, innovative ways. So that, yes, we will ultimately open it up to earlier and to larger students with a really well-crafted curriculum, but that's just too early at the moment. So.
But also what I heard was that
This is the first meeting all year. You didn't check if your mic was on, honestly.
the classes through the partnership would be accelerated. So essentially, maybe these students for this the 1 or 2 years won't take any of the automotive classes, but when they do, they're at a much quicker, a much greater pace. If I heard correctly, it was what would take 2 years can be done in several months. So they may not start it.
So I was just asking for clarification so we knew if we were on a level playing field with what we have or what we had in the past, I should say, and now. I mean, I absolutely applaud what you're doing. I think that's great. So I wasn't putting that out there. I'm just trying to figure out where we were before, where we are now, and possibly where we have to get to.
Right. I would have to say, though, Mike, just having a incoming sophomore, is that my son signed up for classes, and it was just like in college, those closer to graduation get first dibs at electives they need to complete their course of work. So my son wanted to take videography, and they pretty much told him, don't get your hopes up. So find something else that engages you that might have openings that would fit in that space. So he got into 3D modeling. But you know, his first choice was videography. You don't always get your first choice in your electives. It's definitely in priority of your proximity to graduation to make sure you fulfill your requirements, just like in college. So I think that, you know, the kids that were keeping whole are kids that, you know, were already, I think, engaged. And I think the other thing that came up tonight was for this course, you have to have a driver's license. So it really is limiting to the juniors and seniors right now. And I know that long term there's more to come. But the one thing that I heard the other night that I didn't hear tonight, I just want to make clear, is not only will they get the express lane, but if they complete the course successfully, they'll be able to do New Hampshire state inspections, and they'll get a certificate to do that, which makes them more employable. So I just wanted to share that as well.
So follow-up, additional question. Do we have other courses where students are able to get college credits and that the school district pays for fully?
I'm going to turn to Pete in a second to tell you what those courses are. Generally speaking, the courses that we have that for which students get college credit are paid for, that college credit is paid for by the families. Pete, can you just say which colleges?
So right now, we have a dual enrollment credit with Southern New Hampshire University, so accounting 3, and also sports management, and Mandarin 4 with Southern New Hampshire University. And our Running Start program can change every so many years, but certainly, for example, English College Prep 12, and if a student pays the fee, you know, they're afforded that college credit. And there are other courses as well when you are a senior.
And do they receive high school credits? Or is it one also?
High school and the college.
And so,
They have to meet a certain, grade point in that course.
so obviously that brings up some concern, as Annie's saying, that we now are setting maybe a difference of, we're giving college credits, however, we are trying to fulfill class that we do not have within the school district right now, but that could be argued on the other side that we're also in the same circumstance where we don't have those courses. That's why those students are going to college, and however, they do have to pay for it. So I think that has to be kind of weighed also. How many credits would the student get for this class within high school, not college, within the school district?
So once upon completing that semester's worth, they would get a half credit.
Are they there the whole year?
This particular course at MCC is just for one semester.
Okay, sorry, I didn't catch that before. Thank you. I'll let others ask questions, then I'll chime back in.
Okay, Naomi, Cinda, and then.
Hi, thank you for coming. I have just 2 clarification questions to double check some things that I've heard. The first is going back to what Mike was just talking about when it comes to the cost. And I'm hearing the 2 pieces, should the district be paying for college level, but I really want to reiterate and make sure I'm right, that without this, there would be no automotive classes. So this isn't an issue of added value, this would be diminishing value for the entire district. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that makes a very different situation where if it were at cost, then one would be potentially locking students out of a district program based on ability to pay. So I'd want to think about that pretty seriously. The other thing was, I'm assuming, maybe you can't share this, that there are hurdles to starting with younger students immediately given that you're a community college and not set up necessarily to take 15-year-olds and 14-year-olds off the bat. And so some of the thoughts of opening it to everybody might simply not be feasible immediately.
So that's an excellent point. So, and again, I'll say a little bit about what we've been floating about this, the sophomore course, but I'm going to turn to my friends at MCC and say, we're not promising anything. This is really early on. But one of the things that we thought would be nice is if we could have a program for sophomores that would be a sort of a precursor to the course that Megan and Todd just described. That would be sort of, as Ken Johnson talked about, sort of to gauge interest, sort of separate kids who are kind of interested from really interested. It would be very like basic mechanics, basic car safety, car maintenance, those kinds of things. And we've talked about different models of how that delivery might happen. So, but as you point out, in order for the students to enroll in this, they have to be, have a driver's license, and then they have to have a clean driving record. So part of the goal would be sophomore year is kind of the year that students begin to, think about driver's ed, and if they had a goal to eventually take this as a junior or a senior, and they were dragging their heels on the driver's ed, this might be a good impetus to say, okay, well, if this is what you want to do, we're going to give you some notice now so that you can get prepared for that. as opposed to some students who maybe it's junior and senior year and they hadn't gotten around to that and wish I knew. So that's all part of the larger thing that we're working on, but again, I want to just be clear, none of that has been, those details worked out. There's hope that we can, and we'll have more to say to you about it before. The goal for tonight really was to talk about what we have been able to try to put into place to, as Shannon said, to try to satisfy the needs of the oldest students at the high school who, up until, March, when they, were signing up for courses, thought there would be something for them, and then without this, there would be none. That's really the focus for tonight.
Okay, I have Cindy then Michael.
Just a couple points. Just going back to Mike's comment about the question regarding whether other classes, whether other students pay for college classes. And I think the differentiator is that the automotive program has been part of our core curriculum. And I feel like this partnership solves, it's a win-win-win. It's like a triple win. Because what I gather is you're talking about a very specialized industry, one of which can be challenging to find one person to come in and teach that. I think we heard what is happening with a shortage at the beginning of this presentation and how that's driving salary levels up for someone that you're looking as a subject matter expert is probably going to be difficult for us to hire. And that's, I'm just kind of reading between the lines of what I think I'm hearing. So secondly, we're basically forming a partnership that allows for some specialized training of the people that really know how to do this. And we get some economies of scale there, being able to do that, as well as a big win for the students that are getting these college level classes and some high expertise with the training that they're getting. So I think it sounds like a really great solution. Just like anything, it sounds like it'll potentially evolve over time and you optimize and you see where you can expand that relationship. But I think it sounds really promising, and I'm supportive of it.
Michael then Andy.
I guess just to let everybody know, I'm also very supportive of it. I think that you are filling a void that is obviously a challenge for the district because of the level of salary that we could afford based off of many different aspects towards an automotive shop person. So that's your number one challenge, and obviously this fills it, and I applaud you for going out and actually being able to find a way to continue the program. A couple things to just think about, and possibly even a senior mentor program that actually, once they're D-level certified technician, maybe they can actually come back and do the sophomore class or something like that for additional credits internally to actually get them ready for the year that they might go to the college too. So I'm very excited that you were able to find a solution to one of our challenges that we've had. So I applaud you, and I thank the community college also. So, and I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Are you deferring, Andy? Go ahead. That's how you do it. So
I just wanted to probe a little bit more about the meeting with the parents and the tour that the parents took. I wondered if you could tell us just a little bit more about their feedback and some of the questions that they may have asked.
So I would share with, as Pete, Marge, Shannon were all there. I'll just give you just one example. A parent who talked about the fact that this is a reason that her child comes to school, the automotive program, and the thought that that might not exist was troubling to this individual. And when he falls into the category of someone who hadn't pursued getting his driver's license, just feeling not quite sure what was happening. And when he left, he said, I'm really eager to pursue this, and will do what I have to do to make that happen. I think the questions were really along the lines of what is the rigor attached to this, how much lab time is expected, what are the kind of the college component expectations, And I think that the team, MCC, really answered that very well, meaning that they're not insignificant, so we're not going to bait and switch and pretend it's nothing and then really whack them. It's a significant but completely doable proposition. And because they get so much benefit, I think it's important that the parents that were able to ask that question get some answers about what it really will entail. The other thing that I heard a few folks ask just is, does leaving the campus of Merrimack High School mean that they're going to lose some of the thrust of being a student at Merrimack High School? And really, Pete can speak to this, but we're talking about 2 days where you leave at 12:45. The school day ends an hour and a half after that. But every other day and in every other way, they're fully high school kids. And when they get on the bus and they have their half hour that they have to work into their college mode, they'll do it because they know that they've got a real good prospect at the end of that. So that's what I heard. I don't know if others.
And we would do that busing, right? It would be through the district.
I'm sorry?
The district, our district, would do the busing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Andy?
Go ahead.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I thought that the college, our partners, if you will, were wonderful about showing forth what might be. And so our field trip really was about visioning, and I think that persons had preconceived notions of what it was going to be, and in fact it was very different, because there are just two large, I call it like two large hangars with multiple bays of different cars, and I would love you to name the 5 affiliates you have, because that was very impressive, the different kinds of cars, if you could do that.
We have affiliations with Audi, Subaru, Ford. We have a Mopar CAP program, which is anything that falls under Chrysler, Dodge, Ram. And then we have a general program also.
So that right there shows endless possibilities, and the parents came very prepared because of the letters and the phone calls that have been done by Mark and Peter. And so they came with questions, and there wasn't one question that wasn't answered, including, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, students could go on Saturdays for additional work if they needed. They would provide additional support, almost like tutorials if that was needed. And the instructors, many of whom have graduated from the program itself, many of them have been out in the marketplace, so they know what's required. So not only are you getting top-level instruction with top-level equipment, but the fact of the matter is, if you're serious of purpose, a job awaits you. And it awaits you after you finish this first course on a lower level. But what difference? It's in a field that you care about, and you're not doing something else. So I think one of the things that is concerning to me is that persons cannot figure out how to connect the dots from high school to college to the job market. And in one afternoon, one late afternoon, you could see the triangle. I mean, it became very apparent. And it pleased parents, and it drove students. Mark points out 2 students who had no reason to get a driver's license said, oh my goodness, I have to get my driver's license. I mean, they were motivated just in an afternoon.
Michael?
I just actually remembered. I met with Principal Johnson back last summer at this point regarding the trades, and he actually showed me through the high school and everything like that. And when he did show me the automotive shop, the one big glaring item was the technology that we were lacking that actually gave the individuals the ability to go into the workplace and actually work with the tools and stuff because of the funding that we do not have. I think that's an area that obviously is a huge benefit, not only for the school district, for these students and everything like that, but I think it helps beyond just the class itself. It gives them the knowledge of today's technology. So.
Andy, it is yours until you tell me it's not. I think I've cut you off twice now.
That's all right. So in your presentation, you said that the requirements were a clean driving record and 16 years of age and permission from MHS. So are the students registered on their own into MCC and therefore fall under the word I'm struggling with is, the bottom line is that we are sending them on a bus to MCC, but essentially all the liability of any injuries or if they go out on a road test or any of that kind of stuff, that's as if they were just any old student at MCC, right? It's not something special. And the reason I ask is because I love these mics. The reason I ask is because these are 16 or 17-year-old kids that are minors. So it isn't just permission of MHS. There's got to be a parental aspect to this to give them special permission above and beyond going to an MHS class. So I'm trying to understand that because it's a little bit different than just going to a vocational program at Alvern or something like that.
That would be a piece for you to figure out. This past semester, the youngest student at MCC was 15, and the most seasoned student was 67. We are fully insured, and when you ask the question, you know, when they walk on our campus, they would be our students, and so they're entitled to all of the rights our students have. Marge was talking about tutoring. Any MCC student who's registered is entitled to free tutoring and use of the library and so on. But the other piece of it is, as MCC students, they have responsibilities, and we would have expectations that they would meet the code of conduct, not only that the college sets for students, but also that the automotive department sets. Had you been with us on Tuesday evening, you would have heard the department chair really emphasize safety, because the equipment that is there is the equipment that they will find when they go into industry. And so we're going to impress upon them. We talked specifically about the clothing that they would wear when they came. We're anticipating that they're going right into industry. That's how we treat the rest of our students. I'll segue a little bit to talk to you about if they fall in love with the program and then they decide they want to come to our college or any of the community colleges. There are 5 that offer automotive programs, and they achieve an associate in applied science, right? They can then build on top of that by, for instance, going to Southern New Hampshire University and putting a technical management completion degree on top of it. So this is a pathway to go from high school to community college to baccalaureate college.
So I guess, and that's good, and I understand all the benefits, but I guess what I'm saying is, from a district standpoint, we're asking the parents to support and endorse their children to be part of this program, not only as a student of Merrimack High School, but also registering them as a student in the college. So, I mean, you don't want to see this happen, but if something occurs where there's a negative implication while they're on campus, they're still a minor in the parents' eyes, just as if they were in high school. I'm just trying to understand where the obligations lie.
And I think on our application, if you are under the age of 18, we do ask for a responsible adult's signature, and we would be asking for the same thing here.
Right, because we're it's kind of weird because the parents are taking personal responsibility for their minors, but we are taking financial responsibility for them attending. So it's like we're giving grants or something to them to do this and giving a credit back. You see, maybe I'm not being clear, but I'm just looking at the different dimensions because it's very different than what we've done in the past.
And if it's helpful, I'll tell you, for other students who are involved in the early college program, they come and they meet with us on campus with a parent. They have to have the same thing. They have to have somebody from high school who's recognizing that they're signing up for a college class and that They know what they're getting into. They have to have a parent who agrees. They have to agree. And then we have that conversation about, now you're enrolled, you're an MCC student, you are a college student, you have the same expectations as a college student does. And we have that conversation with the students and the parents. And we very much talked a little bit about that with the students and the parents when they came, and would continue that conversation of, as a family, we know you're 16, but here you are, now you're a college student.
So, and then to piggyback onto that, you recall I said that in the second letter I sent the day after we were at MCC, and I said to the parents, by July 31st, if you could let us know your interest. We're developing this as we go. I could imagine an information session that we would pull together with parents. The president talked about some requirements that they would have for signatures. Megan just did. So all of those, I understand what you're asking, and all of that would be, expressed to the parents and worked out, and then the appropriate signature. So I assume that there'd be a parent information night that would share that all.
Andy is done. So Cinda, then Naomi.
I mean, it sounds like it could be worth just having a conversation with our insurance company just to make sure that we're covered from offering this program there. I mean, I know that once they're a student in their doors, but it might be prudent just to have a quick conversation with our carrier.
Naomi.
Just one random last thought in case it hasn't come up just yet, although I'm guessing with the people here it probably has. Colleges and high schools usually have different commitments in regard to students with disabilities, as in IDA versus ADA and those different pieces. And so I just wanted to make sure that that's being looked at in some way.
You're correct. There are different regulations that affect colleges and 504 versus high school. We have a special needs counselor, and we draw up contracts. So that's a possibility. The building is accessible, and the bays and the shop are certainly such that we would go by, in that particular case, we would go by the regulations that impact the college. And so there's a set of requirements for someone. So we would go through that with the individual family to see whether we can accommodate the particular issue that a student has or concern.
The professor has spoken. So, our ringer, as I call her. She definitely has both sides of the conversation, so it's perfect. Are there any other questions from the board? And Mark?
I'd like to take this opportunity really to thank President Heward, Megan, Todd, and all of the people who have really helped establish this. We often talk about K-16 education, and yet when you actually go beyond talking about it and actually making something happen, for 1,000 reasons, they fall apart. And this is one where it would seem that that's not happening. And I really want to thank these folks, because they recognized a problem that we were having to try to make sure that we had programming for our students that was contemporary, that would satisfy their educational and their vocational aspirations. They recognized that challenge that we had, and then more, than stepped up to the plate and partnered. So, I would like to offer this as a model for how I'd like to see, districts work in the future. And so I really just want to thank you all for hosting us the other night, for being here tonight, and for just being so open to trying to make something a little bit unusual maybe really work for the benefit of students.
So, and yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and we're looking forward to it. As Mark indicated before, we too feel like we're going to build the airplane while we're flying it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we're
honestly, we didn't bring you air
adventure.
conditioning or cookies. We're really sorry about that. But the one thing I would say about this is, sometimes in crisis comes clarity. And, we really are at a great place right now. MCC has programs and other specialties. Automotive has this opportunity to expand the conversation for us. The dialogue and how the program is building, how the program is developing, what they have to offer us. We're going to have that established relationship to keep talking. And I think that we can only go up from here. This is a first step in a long a long journey, I think. We will never at the high school be able to offer the state-of-the-art facilities that are provided at MCC, that are provided by the manufacturers of the cars that we're all driving. So they are getting, and I did thank you for, really taking us through the facility, but it is a world-class facility. It's as good as any dealership you're going to drive into. It's equipped as such, and it's spotless, it's meticulous. It's really showing the example of what kids will want to aspire to work in. And, again, it's taking an elective and it's making it a tangible career path. And I think that is so important. And I think that we have a lot more examples that, as time goes on, we'll maybe be able to engage. So this is, I think, the first of many conversations, if I had to predict, on what we can do with MCC in the future with our students.
We would be very happy to host one of your meetings so that your entire board can come up and see what is available at MCC when you're ready.
Is Chris ready for a road show with that thing? Excellent. No, and we do appreciate it. And we're very excited. So we look forward to sharing next steps with you. Thanks. And we will be moving on to item number 4, which is the report on the Communications Committee's progress for 2016-17 and visioning for technology needs for 2018-19. And I invite to the table Nancy Rose. Welcome and happy summer, which is probably some of your busiest time.
There we go. And happy summer to everybody here. And good evening. I'm going to switch it around. I'm going to talk about technology first. And I thought it might be useful. I know that the agenda item is about visioning for next year, but I just wanted to kind of give everybody a sense of where we are, because we've been working on improving the budgeting and the process for getting more technology into the district and improving access for quite a few years now. So for the year that just ended, 2016 and 17, one of the big thrusts this last year was we added laptop carts for the middle school. So there's 5 laptop carts there, and then we added one more at the high school. And it might be helpful for you to know, this is outside of the labs, but we now have 3 carts of laptops at MES and Thornton's Ferry and Reed's Ferry. There's 4 at the upper elementary, 5 at the middle school, and 6 at the high school. So we've been increasing our capacity a little bit as we go. This last year, we also recabled all of MES, this building, and with the network cabling, and then we are at about 90% of the network switches can handle gigabit traffic, which is the 10, 100, and then 1,000 gigabits of speed. And then we also converted this year to FirstLight for our internet service, our wide area network, and our phone service. And that is at a pretty substantial cost savings, and it's a model that we're building out the infrastructure, and at the end of the payment time, we could technically own the fiber and run it ourselves, where we were on a pure subscription model with Comcast. And the other thing that I think is interesting to just put into your brains is John Fabrizio and I worked with each other this year to purchase Soundfield systems that are installed. So if you've heard of Red Cats, he talks about the Soundfields that are a standalone speaker, and then the teacher wears a lanyard so that the voice is kind of permeates the classroom space. And this is really in support of students with hearing, auditory processing, and also attention issues. And we purchased some where you actually install speakers in the ceiling, and it ties into the sound from the computer and or projector. So now it isn't only the teacher's voice that comes over that system, it's whatever is being projected. And then these systems also come with software, which allows pretty easily the teacher to begin recording whatever is being said or sent over the projector. So if they're doing something online, if they're doing something interactive that's projected, all of that can get captured. And so this allows you to then post these kinds of lessons for students that either need another go or that missed. So it opens up some possibilities. And so this is an area that, this is a learning year. There's several in the elementary schools, and then one at the high school and one at the middle school. It's a year for learning how to use the system, how to interact, what it seems to impact. Cost-wise, it is not that much more for the equipment than the standard standalone system. The cost is in the install, but when it integrates into an entire classroom, it becomes very worthwhile. So those were some highlights that we were able to do this year. And then for last year, because we're now in 17-18, this summer we're going to be replacing the computer labs in all of the K-6 schools. And we're going to be updating machines in the high school tech ed department, which is timely since that's what we were just talking about. We're going to be installing computers for the classrooms that do CAD and design and 3D animation with systems that can actually handle that load. We'd been doing it with Macs and regular PCs, and it was taking a lot of time for compilation or for processing to happen. So it actually will begin to look a lot more like what a student would experience if they had a job doing this kind of work. So thinking about real-world applicability, it was pleasing to hear about that program. And then we're also working on getting the staff machines replaced so that we're continuing to shorten that replacement cycle so that staff computers, ideally by the end of this year, almost all of them would be 6 years old or newer, which, considering where we were a few years ago, that's a big jump. Another thing we're working on this summer is we've been adding wireless access points for the last 4 years and finding that the coverage is still hit or miss depending on where you are. So we have set a goal. We will need to get to one AP or access point per classroom, but to move us in that direction this summer, we're going to be shifting the ones in the hallways into a classroom and then adding in a staggered fashion, almost if you think of like a zipper. So we'll move one in, install one, move one in, install one, to try to improve the bandwidth from classroom to classroom. And then that just lays a clear path as we move forward to completion for saturation. Let's see. We implemented PowerSchool Learning and began training at the end of July, which was the learning management system. And I'll talk a little bit more about that with the communication update. And then also this summer, we hired students for the first time, like in a large scale. We had always had like one high school student. This year, we have 6 high school students. Several of them graduated and are going on to school in the fall, and several of them are going to stay with us. And they've been doing the summer cleanup and refresh and software installs and shifting and literally vacuuming out computers. They're going to be inventorying classrooms and also working on replacing filters and projectors, which we've never had the time to do. So there's a lot of things we're doing this year that we've never had the time to do because we just didn't have the staff. And they have been fabulous. They've been in fact, they get a little anxious if they don't feel like they know what their next job is going to be. So any questions of motivation or drive are out the window. But the other thing that we're offering this summer is drop-in training to staff so that they can get some hands-on time with PowerSchool Learning, Office 365, and the new PowerSchool Gradebook. And almost all of the students were in agreement that they would help with that training. So I think it's nice to see a sense of ownership on their part, that they really want to, they'll do whatever, and they're very willing to take on some of these new roles. So that's what we're working on this year. And then moving forward for the 18-19 school year, I think just a nuts and bolts, the replacement will probably be on that first round of laptop carts that we put in the elementary schools. Those will be ending their 4th year this year. And they've been really going hard, but laptops just go through a lot more wear and tear. And then I think the middle school will need to be refreshed. That building was done as a whole, I think 5 years ago. And then also we still have some labs in the high school. For the most part, I think we're caught up with staff. By the end of this year, we should be fairly well caught up with staff. And then thinking about visioning, and it falls really kind of on the idea of what they were just talking about with getting students ready to go out into the workforce, is just taking a more comprehensive look at computer science education. This is something that we've looked at in a couple of different ways, and this is an area that I'd like to really continue to explore and to kind of create sort of a cohesive path for students, so that it isn't just that you get exposure and then take courses, that there's sort of a sense of a profile almost, like if you're more interested in the nuts and bolts or networking as opposed to programming or theory, to create more of an opportunity for that. And then also working at the lower levels to shift our tech educators at the ETIs to be less of a skill instructor, which is what they are now, to move more into being more of an integrator, and then also having an opportunity to focus on coding instruction and that logical problem solving, because we're finding that that's highly engaging, but also really good for students, especially if you have students that struggle in other areas. The sequential thinking and the ability to logically model things, they're successful at that. So we wanted to continue to grow that. And then also I'm working on trying to expand the first types of programs, like the FIRST robotics and Lego programs, and to create more of a cohesive connection to the district. One of the things that happens with those types of programs is that we get a lot of parent help, but as the students move through, you lose your parents, because the parents go with the kids. I can't even say how fortunate with the Petrovics, who I believe have been with us for 20 years running the FIRST robotics program at the high school, have brought in mentors, have had students that are alumni come back. They have indicated a desire to retire. I'm still working on talking them out of it. But there's going to be a need to fill those shoes and to create more of a strong sense of a program that doesn't just rely on the very good work of a couple individuals, and to create more of a sense of how this ties in directly to the schools and ways to leverage the opportunities that a FIRST type challenge presents, because there's requirements in marketing, budgeting, art, promotional materials, graphics. So there's just so many different areas that might be something that could get incorporated into what I think people perceive as programming and robotics. And then also, let's see, professional development just in general is going to be something that we continue to focus on, and looking at different models, like with the Power School Learning, we're working on a train the trainer model, so that as people become more expertise, they can share that with people in their buildings. We will probably be looking to shift more and more curriculum to a digital environment. The math program that's coming up has an entire aspect of it that is online, and this is something that I can see teachers embracing as they move forward. And so I think this is a nice wedge to begin that process to shift. It's a different thinking, it's a different decision making, it requires different access to technology. And then to support this, we're going to need to continue to add mobile devices and to increase student access. Right now, depending on the building, we hover in the 1 to 4, 1 to 5 range of device to students. And that's a mix of laptops, iPads, labs. Less iPads, because a lot of the iPads are they're relegated to certain programs and or certain students. And then the staff to support this growth. We currently have about 1 technician to 1,000 devices, and I was researching, and a norm or an average is about 1 to 333. So we're a little beyond that. We have an amazing technology staff, and we're incredibly fortunate, but we do ask an incredible amount from them. And then also just continuing to look at areas of opportunity for community partnerships. I think this tonight was a fabulous example of the kind of collaboration that can occur, and to create those real-world connections for career thinking or processing, or what might a job look like in skilled manufacturing or technology or some of the new alternative energies and things like that. So that was the very, very nutshell version of a tech review. And I can take questions now, or I can just shift on to the community or the communications committee.
I think if there's tech questions, it's going to be different, so let's go for it. Andy?
So you talked about the potential retirement or fading away of the people, of the folks that have been doing the robotics. We know who they are, what they've been doing. Are you going to formalize the robotics as part of something that we budget? Here's why I'm asking.
In a visioning way, yes.
No, we're heading into budget season. And it's obvious how much robotics have given to the district in terms of growth and things. I think this might be an opportunity for us as a district to look at maybe formalizing the program into something that may be credit-based, something that would justify instructors that are on our payroll to be able to carry the program, to, you know, and still bring parental input. But the FIRST Robotics has always been something very powerful, something that we've always been able to, as in the state largely. I mean, you know, it's all around the country, but in New Hampshire, because of where it started, it's something strong. Yeah, and I think that the community could be behind us formalizing this more, because it's such a cross section that gets involved. And we've been very fortunate to have parents get involved, some of which have driven it for a long time. And I would like, as one member of the board, to see something in the budget come up to start formalizing the process. It's just my personal thoughts.
So what I'm doing right now is trying to create well, actually I'm learning a lot. I'm trying to figure out exactly what we have in different locations, both for parents, potential students, and then equipment, just bare bones, and understanding more about the programs. At the high school, there is a robotics course that they do get credit for. The wrinkle there is that the students have to take the course to get the credit, so it isn't, and that's not every student that can fit that into their schedule. So if they're on the first team, they may or may not be getting credit. So I think that what you're talking about is something that I think is something that we could look at, which are like the extended learning opportunities, or ELOs, that you hear about in other districts, where you sort of broaden your thinking about the school day. This, of course, would be a high school consideration. I am looking at how to make it tie more directly in district-wide, but it definitely is something that I would happily work with a high school to try to figure out ways to make it more meaningful, and also to make it a little bit more accessible, because I do think that it can feel intimidating to kids who may not see themselves as programmers or builders. But I think as soon as they're on a team and part of it, they're doing more than they ever thought that they would. So I agree with you that it's of high quality, and I think that the need for it is there.
And one of the reasons is because, this is speaking from a specific firsthand knowledge, is that because right now it's treated sort of as completely extra off to the side, if you have students that have IEPs and special needs that might need aids or other assistance, it's almost a bridge too far for some of them to be able to do that, because you don't have the involvement of more of the school resources as part of the program. I think there's an opportunity to take kids, as an example, on the autism spectrum that are really drawn to robotics and the software and all those things, to maybe have a better chance to be involved. That maybe they can't always commit to all the evening things, but rather part of it, more of the regular part of the program. So it's just my thought.
Marge?
I was just going to say, we have that now, Andy, and we didn't before, but now we actually will have the para able to be with the students, so he or she could participate.
Okay, but I still think we should make it more mainstream than still.
Right. Oh,
off to
I
the
understand
side.
that. You're
Right,
talking
right.
about a regular day, but I'm just saying, we have expanded such that before,
Okay.
you're absolutely right, one could not have participated because there wouldn't have been the person.
Okay.
But now we have that in place, so whatever you choose to do, be it robotics or whatever, we'll have a para with you so you can participate.
Okay.
Well, and feeding on that, I had a discussion where we had a few parents, and Chris Petrovic was there, and somebody from the FIRST organization. And the parents were actually interested in the special ed component and the support for students. And this was really a student that had physical needs that just couldn't go into the evening, which the program does, and wanted to have more access to it during the day when she was at her best. So I think that it's an opportunity to really look at how do you expand the access, how do you expand the learning, and who are the students, and what is it that they need from it, and then to build it from there. So the point is well taken. Are there other questions?
Are you done, Andy? Yeah, Michael?
Hello. Thanks for coming. I had a question. You had mentioned at one point that the device-to-student ratio is roughly 1 to 4 for the district. Do you know how that compares to the other districts around us by any chance?
It varies. I know that there's districts around us that are 1-to-1. There are, I think we're at about, if we're not 1-to-1, excuse me, we're probably comparable. I think that typically the ones that have launched into a 1-to-1 have gone from about where we are. Because it's kind of a difficult continuum, because if you need to add, it's kind of like you have to get over a hurdle. So I would say that they're either 1-to-1 or probably similar to us, and that's just working with my colleagues in other districts.
I'll just give you an example. My wife's district is 1-to-1, but they do it with Chromebooks. So it's not like PCs for everybody or things like that. They take a standard that's lower cost but applicable across, and that's how they do it. So as you go to implement, you've got to make some decisions as to what that 1-to-1 is going to be.
Yep.
As an example.
I do want to just commend your team, because you said that 1 to 1,000. That's pretty impressive, and as I've said in the past, no corporation would stand for that. So I just want to kind of put that out, that you guys are doing an amazing job. But I just wanted to follow up on the robotics discussion and actually formalizing it. I don't lean one way or another in this discussion. However, what I've heard a lot from the students that actually come forward that are involved, they did it because there wasn't a formal credit behind it. They took that chance of, being able to, I had a student that actually came right to our presentation once that actually said, really wasn't sure if it was for them or anything like that, but they got into it and saw that team atmosphere and was able to build off of it. So, if you were to look at that, I think that you'd have to look at both sides and even ask some of the students, would they even get involved in it if it was formalized? And again, I'm not one way or another, I'm just going back based on some feedback that I've seen from some of the kids that are involved. So you might lose some others, you might gain some others too, so just a thought there.
Well, and we do already have the robotics course that's tied directly to FIRST. There's kids that are in the robotics class that are not on the team, and there's kids that are obviously on the team that are not in the course. Science Olympiad is another area where they did this, where they added the course opportunity for students that participate in the team-based extracurricular. So, yeah.
Right, and actually I'm a chop shop mom, so I can tell you from firsthand knowledge that I think there are kids that are involved in, you talk about robotics, but you're right, and I think you front-loaded it with the right message. Not all the kids. Picture if all the kids were touching the robot, it'd be like a kiddie soccer team where they all follow the ball down the field in like a herd, and they don't. They're spread out completely, because there are some that do design, they don't touch the robot. There's some that drive, they don't build the robot. There's some that don't touch or build the robot, but they're doing only community and public relations and marketing and fundraising and messaging. So when you're talking about a robotics credit, a FIRST robotics credit, it wouldn't pigeonhole into necessarily one specific subject matter. It could be a marketing elective, honestly, but you're doing it through a robotics conduit, and that's your project. But it's you're not doing anything mechanical, so it is a diverse group. And yes, there is heavy parent involvement, because I've spent many nights and weekends there doing setups and takedowns and all that stuff. And I would hate to think also that expectation would go away, because there's so much with robotics that's outside of school with competitions, and they will always happen nights and weekends, and sometimes during the day during school, but it does usually lead into weekend days. So, it would not stay in the four walls of the building necessarily. And as you're building a program around that how you would get credit for participation as well as an ELA would have to be, very well defined, I think.
And I think it's also important to follow on the previous discussion where they talked about this can be something that incentivizes students to take on either the driver's license or whatever. But you don't have to spend very much time with Chris Petrovic to hear what it does for students as far as learning how to be a part of a team and not to be the center of a team, and learning how to lead effectively and how to problem solve. Good sportsmanship, how to be out in public. And I think it creates something that students care deeply about, and they are willing to address things that they don't necessarily always want to take on, which if it was just simple coursework, that it might be easy, to just dismiss.
Michael?
Just to follow up on my comment, maybe even thinking a little bit broader, if you do formalize it, still leaving maybe still an informal availability to some of the people to actually be able to help after school and be part of the team without.
I don't see it proceeding without that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Andy?
I just want to be clear that my main reason for doing this is so that we don't rely on the Petrovics or the follow-on to drive the program. I have a feeling if they weren't there, the program may not exist with the emphasis and excitement that it does today. And I think what I'm saying is we as a district need to take leadership to make sure that continues and not fear that they're going to retire, right? I mean, that's really the point, is that. And one can take, whether it's credit, it'll make it, some kids not want to do it versus others. There's kids that could get involved to their own level. I mean, people that program behind the scenes, can sit all day and program, and then it gets bench tested that night, and then the next day they program. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do this, because I guess I'm speaking because I have a child that is of a certain that just didn't get into the mechanic side, but really wanted to get into the others. And the way it was set up, it didn't really lend itself to it for full engagement. And maybe it's changed. I mean, I'll admit it's been a few years, but it's just really, let's take more ownership of it. Let's still include the community, but let's drive it and then make it as best as we can. That was my main
I agree.
Are there any other questions on technology? Seeing none, on to part 2, communications.
Okay. Let's see. So I just wanted to provide a brief review of the communication committee. We met throughout the year, and as a reminder, this was a committee made up of about 20 people that consisted of school board members, parents, and teachers and administrators. We conducted the survey in the fall to try to gather from parents some questions about communication in general and specifically, and then we used that to sort of drive our agenda moving forward. And it was a privilege to take it on, but it was a many-headed hydra to try to wrangle. And it was a challenge, and it was interesting to work on a challenge with the different stakeholders, and I really enjoyed getting to spend time and to know the people who were on the committee and also the perspectives that they brought. I thought that was really rich dialogue. I'm not sure I know of another area where that's happened quite as richly, but that could just be my lack of exposure. So I'll just kind of walk through the areas that we took on to try to just make a recommendation, because one of the aspects of this is we're looking at the phenomenon of communication, which in many cases pulls out the reality of an underlying process that needs to get reviewed or an underlying workflow that needs to get reviewed. So it kind of showed what we needed to do, but it wasn't necessarily the work of the committee to fix. So one of the things that we're going to be working on this summer is just providing more information about district information systems to the public through the website, such as PowerSchool and the online registration, which has come up in the last year, PowerSchool Learning, which is the new learning management system, School Messenger, which is another tool that we use, but I think it is good to give some context to that. And then like the lunch system, Office 365, and other systems like that that parents might interact with or that students might be interacting with at home. We have a lot of programs and initiatives that are going on, and this is where you get into the acronyms and people forget to say what something stands for or what it means. So under that, we would be spelling out different district-wide plans, spelling out what RTI, which is response to intervention, or MTSS, which is multiple tiers of support. The comprehensive level at the high school, which is a pretty big undertaking but may not be well understood. Competency and standard-based grading as we're moving forward. You know, we've had competencies for a while. We're working on changing the report cards at all levels to, or the lower levels to standards. PLTs, professional learning teams, which are heavily used at the elementaries. And my son actually referred to his PLT, and I said, "What is that?" just to see. And he goes, "Well, I don't know. But I know that those are the other kids that I interact with." So it was telling to know that, you know, my 11-year-old consumer didn't know what a PLT was, but he used it all the time. And then there's other supports in place like TIA, CIA, different kind of integrated activities that support students and are so integral to their day that if we can pull that out and describe that, I think that would be highly informative for parents that are looking for that information. Another area that we looked at was just a review of policy. There's a lot of policies that were reviewed and put online in about 2007 that would have to have been impacted by an increased use of technology and web for the conducting of business. So that's something that would be ongoing, that would be a partnership between the district administration and the board. One area that I think was a big feature of the survey and moving forward was the whole idea of PowerSchool and reporting progress, grades, inputting of grades. And so the group came up with a set of recommendations that we then handed off to Dr. McLaughlin, who was working with the middle and high school to look at how grades are done in PowerSchool. So that's sort of an example of where the committee showed something and came up with some thoughts and sent that along to another committee that's more positioned to work on that. And then there's also a report card committee that would be another part of that. The learning management system, or the need for a lot of the language in the survey from parents was about needing streamlined, consistent access to what's in the classroom, access to homework and assignments, and knowing what kids need to do. And so we licensed PowerSchool Learning. It ties directly into PowerSchool through the gradebook and is really user-friendly, I think. And we've done training. We did some training at the end of June. There's training ongoing through the summer. There will be some in the August Academy, and then we'll continue to offer it through the year. And that's really to strive for as much adoption as we can possibly get from grades, essentially kindergarten up through 12, so that a parent with students in multiple locations would have one place to go. And even if it links out to other places, it's still one place to start. So that's really the goal for that. Another big area of communication was just simply information from the school and current events, like how do you celebrate what you do well? How do you keep people aware of what's going on? And so there's going to be just some work done this summer to align the different school websites so that the information is, a little bit more consistent, but also we're looking at getting maybe some more information in the calendars. Like we found that when you click on calendar entries, it'll take you someplace that doesn't necessarily tell you much about the thing that you just clicked on. And then also one of the areas that we're looking at is just simply social media. This, of course, is new territory for us. There's tools that will take web updates and push them out to different social media accounts. So this is something that might help automate that process and create some kind of consistent messaging. And then this was also an area where the parents on the committee really shared that Facebook pages from classrooms, whether it's, or from, different events and things like that, or the boosters or the athletic clubs. People are very tuned in to getting updates this way. And so I think it's important that we're considering that and moving forward with that in a way that is sustainable. I think that's a big aspect of it, and then also responsible. And then also just looking at school messaging from the buildings. We have inconsistency as far as, some buildings, the principals send out a message periodically, and in some places they don't. The middle school is doing a blog right now that I think is well regarded. I think it's informative and it's fun, and you get to see your kids. So looking at ways to kind of make it so that as your children move through the district, you have sort of a consistent messaging expectation to create that. And I think this is an area we've never looked at before. One of the more interesting dialogues that occurred in the June meeting was about parent-teacher conferences and how there's such a difference at the high school going down to the elementary level and the amount of time dedicated, but also the thinking behind it. Because at the elementary level, I think parents are concerned about the developmental milestones, and is my child doing what he should be doing, and what do they need to do next? And that dialogue with the teacher is very highly regarded, and they seek to talk to almost every parent if they can. And then by the time you get to high school, there's less time, and it's almost as though the expectation is that you go to find out what's wrong rather than what's great. And it was curious to hear the perspective from parents and also from students, from teachers, of what the role of the conferences is at the different levels. And I thought there's an opportunity there to really explore that dynamic and what is it that you want to know about your child. And does it really change when your student is in high school? You kind of still want to know if they're a good person and if they seem like they're interacting well with their peers, even though that may not necessarily be when you're going through your course teachers the thought. And so this is an area I think that we can explore some more, but I was an unexpected conversation, and Cinda might have something to share about that too. Go ahead.
I think what was interesting too when we talked about that conference aspect was that the high school doesn't designate as much time.
It's scheduled.
So it's...
They do it online now, so that's new
electronic
this year.
scheduling was amazing in the
That's
spring.
this year.
But it's not
amazing.
just the time, it's the available time overall. So
Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, I'm kind of going back a couple months, that in other schools, there's several days you can choose from and where you can schedule it. It sounded like the high school had a very narrow window, and you really got to hope for the best when you get there. That's what I got out of it. But I don't have any high school children. But I felt like there was just a supply and demand aspect to it.
With the sense of less demand. Yeah.
And I
And the
think all
parent.
the classes were 10 minutes each still. So every teacher you got 10 minutes with. When you're at the middle school, you get the whole team for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So you actually got a little bit more when you add it all up. But
Well, and at the elementary level, one teacher has 25 students, and at the high school, they can have 100 or more.
Right.
So there's differences in the math aspect of it, but also just the difference in the thought behind it, or the expectations behind it. And then another area that we recognized need for great improvement is with the handbooks, the parent-student handbooks. This is where we're just going to need to really consider workflows, and up to this point, the handbook has really been designed to be a print document, and I think we would benefit from creating it as a more of an online document and print as available or as needed. Part of the handbook is actually addressed in the new registration process, the InfoSnap, so that as you are going through registration, you are agreeing that you have read and will adhere to policies, and you do an electronic sign-off. That currently reaches maybe half the parents. I'm not sure what our saturation is with that yet. So this is an area where what seemed simple is actually fairly complex, and it's shifting from a print focus to a digital focus, while not losing the ability to print as needed, and making sure that we're always pointing to the most current information and keeping it as current as possible. So I think that will be something to be looked at over the next school year. And then another area was just new school year transition support. And we talked about this at the leadership team, about transition and everything that we're trying to do to support students, and kind of the aha moment that came out of that was this is actually transition for the parents as you start a new year, but as you move between schools. And this is just like the functional aspect of getting into a new year in a new building: parking, drop-off, hours. What are the deadlines for the events that my kid will not tell me? So it's all the little gotcha things all kind of captured in one place. And this is something that I'm hoping to try to work on this summer, to have something that would be available for the different buildings. It may be a card that goes out with the preschool start mailing. It may be something online that's printable. But just something to help make those transitions for the parents a little bit smoother and add some normalcy to that. And then, so, this was a year that we wrapped up, and as we move forward, I think there's work to continue to work on, but also maybe some areas to look at would be kind of a marketing aspect, like why come to the Merrimack Public Schools? What are the things that we do well? What would a new resident want to know? What are some things, and this is something that Marge has indicated, would be, if people are considering a move, whether it's through a real estate agent or an employer, what are they asking the schools, or about the schools? What is it they want to know, or what is it that they're looking for? So this is an area that I think we could work on. And then otherwise just continuing to work on our messaging and workflows and to just try to get better. I think it was a revealing process, but a lot of work ahead. So.
Cinda, did I see you, Mike? Okay, so Cinda and then Mike.
Yeah, I would just say, as being one of the 2 school board representatives on this committee, and Nancy's not going to blow her own horn, but she did an incredible job of, I think, her leadership capabilities really shown. I think that her organization, I'm in a lot of meetings at work. That's the bulk of my day, is meetings and people that are trying to drive and kind of wrangle things in to move forward. And her work is second to none. She really did a fantastic job, always prepared, not scheduling unnecessary meetings, the appropriate number of meetings, as well as just the recap that you did was spot on. That's exactly my recollection of the entire year, and you captured it like perfectly.
Thank you.
So, I mean, the big drivers that came out of the survey really were that consistency as people move through the schools, like Nancy had said, trying to navigate a new culture and hoping for consistent practices, as they move through that district. I think that was a big aha moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly I feel it as a parent. I can understand, where that comes from. But yeah, between that and then, the overall transition and even if it's such a big topic, I think everyone that was at the meeting recognizes that, but now it's a matter of, some of them are probably low-hanging fruits. Nancy could take, like she did, some of those items back to administration, get some conversations going in some of the leadership meetings about things, and slowly but surely it's one of those things that it's so huge the work would never be done, but where do you gradually get those improvements and really help the quality of life of our students and the parents, I think is really important. So I think you did a phenomenal job, and your leadership was exceptional.
I appreciate that. That's nice.
Michael?
She stole what I was going to say. I would second that, definitely. I definitely appreciate all the time and the effort that you put in. I think you did a wonderful job of running the meetings. Great overview. I think that there's some things that seem simple within the list, like, just having a centralized page to go and find out how to, but, I think that it obviously it's much more than that, actually trying to find out everything that you need to put on that site, but I think it will be very valuable just to even have that initial site so parents can go to and then figure out where to go from there, versus right now just kind of, so I think it's a huge step forward that is coming, and I appreciate everything that you've done. And the committee as a whole. So.
No one else? So thank you for your hard work. I know the communications committee was one extra job with a very full job, but I think it's paying dividends, and it's really showing true value to this district. And as I said, when we were establishing this, I don't think it's ever going to go away, the need for this committee. There's always going to be new technologies to communicate through, new dynamics in the classroom that are going to create dialogue, and the ability to educate parents and the community at large on all we do with the work that is put in front of us and the money that we are given through our taxes. So there's so many areas of responsibility we as a board face. Having a conduit for that information that's well organized and well planned and thorough, I think will help really drive the district forward on all fronts. So without this committee and all the demands that we get as board members for information, I think having this committee doing its work has made it much easier for all interested parties to navigate it well. So thank you for your hard work, and thank the committee as well when you gather up again.
Well, thanks for trusting me with it. Have a good night.
You too. And now we're on to item number 5, which is the school lunch increase for 2017-2018 based on federal paid lunch equity calculations and meal guidelines for 2017-18. And I invite to the table Dave Zeke. Welcome, Dave. Happy summer. The kitchen will be cooler next fall, I hope, in the high school at least.
I hope so. I don't know if you've been in the high school kitchen lately, but it's under construction.
I saw something from the highway, I'll just say.
All right, well, thank you for having me here tonight. I just wanted to present something that we need to do every so often, and this year is the price increase for school meals. This is based on the paid lunch equity, which is one of the programs that they put in place in the 2010 Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act. So basically, it's something that it's a form that I have to fill out every year when we apply for the National School Lunch Program, and we just have to make sure that what we're charging for a paid meal is equal to or greater than what the federal reimbursement is for free meals. So with that in place, we've had a few years where we hadn't had the price increase. When we did raise it a few years ago, and kind of like got over the hump for a few years. This year, I have to go up 10 cents. So basically, when I look at it, it's based on all the schools for the October meals served, and it's an average of all the schools. So I can take a look at each one of them and see what I'd like to do as far as getting that increase over. My recommendation would be to bring the upper elementary school up a quarter and have that equal to the middle school pricing, and then increase the high school pricing a quarter as well. What that would do is would keep the elementary schools at a level price and the middle school at the level price, and then we would reach our requirement for this year.
What's a high school special?
It's a second. We have a second line that we offer, something that's more than what's on the regular menu items. So it may be something that would be a different portion or a different variety of items. We have specialty pizzas that we do. We have specialty meals that we present. So it's something that costs us a little bit more to prepare, and we sell it as an additional item at the high school.
And it still has to meet the same guidelines, though?
It sure does, yeah.
Absolutely, okay. Thank you for the clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Andy?
So there's a board member who was here 2 years ago, gone now, who every time you would talk about this would ask, why are we still on the government-funded program? Now, I know you've talked in the past about how the free lunch and all that, but that program also causes us to meet this sort of average, which is really what's driving your price increase. So I guess it would be good for you to just share if you have any information on what other districts are doing. We know there were a couple of districts that decided to just kick the government regulations out and go on their own. So if you've got any information to share, that would be good.
The government also supplies us with surplus commodity foods, and some years it's around $60,000 to $75,000 a year. So jumping off the National School Lunch Program would also mean that you wouldn't be able to receive goods for the schools that weren't on that program, as well as the free and reduced students that we get reimbursement for. I think the district would have to pick up the tab on those as well. So I think it's definitely worth being on the program, and for most schools, we're in the same area as far as what we're charging for meals right now. So it's nothing that's excessive. It's something that I think that we're in the same area as the other school districts in the area.
So, but there were one or two districts in the state that decided to go on their own. Do you have any anecdotal data about how that has worked, or anything like that?
I couldn't give you a definite as what has happened with those. I know for a fact that they cannot use the commodity foods, and I'm not sure what they're charging for school meals, but I would think it'd have to be more than what we would be paying at the high school level right now. So, and it was the high school levels on those 2 school districts. The lower levels will still participate in the National School Lunch Program.
Gosh, is my mic on? I can't believe I'm asking myself. Are there any other questions about the school lunch pricing for next year? Okay, seeing none, this is basically following compliance, so we don't actually have to vote on anything. It is what it is, I believe. So this will be when will this be posted on the website so parents can plan accordingly?
I am going to contact Larry Brown. He's doing the printing of the lunch applications, and we will give that to the computer department to post on the Merrimack District website as well.
Excellent. And anyone that has one of the school bucks accounts, will they be getting a notification via that to be able to plan accordingly as they throw money in the accounts?
I'm not sure how the My School Bucks communicates to the parents, but I will check with them as well.
It tells you our money's low, that's about what I know.
Yeah, I will check with them as well.
Okay, that'd be great.
What did you just ask?
About the My School Bucks program, if they can notify parents, that just throw batches of money in their kids' accounts of the increase, so that way they can prepare accordingly as they plan their deposits. Some of them, I think, do automatic as well, so it's going to impact them as well. Michael?
Yeah, I believe that was a question from last time, whether we could communicate to the parents via SMS or anything like that. So I'd love to have a follow-up and answer on that.
The communication as far as the charging for the meals, or?
So like if does the system, just like Shannon's asking, does the system allow you to communicate?
The system, My School Bucks will send out a low balance email to the parents.
But he was asking about texting, I think.
Yeah, texting and other, like what are all the capabilities that the system has to?
Well, if I can help out here. Yeah. Our main communication tool to parents has always been School Messenger. So we would utilize that because not all parents who choose to have their sons or daughters take school lunch are utilizing My School Bucks. But we have access to everybody's phones and the majority of their emails. So as far as communication goes, as far as this information, if you wanted to push a notification, we could push a notification out to parents via email using School Messenger.
Can School Messenger know when they actually are in a negative balance and send out a message?
No.
That's what I'm talking about. Like,
well, the My School Bucks at a certain level would push out a message to the parents saying your balance is in the negative.
Yeah, just looking for clarification of all the tools. Like last time I had asked if we could do a text and it was unknown at that time. Just seeing what.
But it does send notifications to the parents. It's just not
via
text,
email.
Via email.
And I think as we're dealing with a younger and younger population of parents coming in with a lot of technology and aptitude, their texting and SMS reminders are becoming a real core part of the communication and the kind of the ticklers, the alerts. So it might be worth considering being able to go back to the tool and see My School Bucks and seeing if that's something they have on the horizon.
Okay, I can double check on that.
Or if there's another system that might accommodate that. Because I truly believe that some of the collection issues are really about how are we getting the right communication, to the parents regarding these balances.
And it depends on the questions that My School Bucks ask the parent when they enroll. I know they ask for emails, but I'm not sure if it asks for cell phone or texting.
And what their preference might be for the reminders. I know there's a lot of things that I sign up for that ask me if I want an email or a text even that I get for similar type things.
Yep. All right. I will double check. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
No other questions on the school lunch increase? Seeing none, we're on to Part B.
All right. Part B, this is a follow-up to what we had talked about earlier this spring, based on the meal charging and limits that we had in place. And we also talked about what we could do looking into the future as far as eliminating any alternate meals that we had out there as far as giving kids an alternate meal when they reach the charge limit. So what I did was I looked at a couple of different angles, and we initially raised the charge limit to $20. We did eliminate the alternate meal. So any kids that reached were charging were given the regular meal of the day. What we will do is include the My School Bucks information to anybody in the district that in the informational packet that goes out in the fall, so that they have the availability to sign up, and don't necessarily have to use the My School Bucks depositing, but you can use all the information that goes along with it for free. So that's the one thing that I will, send out to all parents, that it's a free system that we do have in place. And what we had prior to were, we'd have a charge limit of $10, so we did increase that limit. And what happened, we took a look at the students that were at the $10 limit, and what we had to do when we get to that point, the system would not allow them to charge. So a lot of times it put the cashiers and the staff in a position that they'd have to, work around that. So that increasing it to $20 was good because it did give them a little bit more leeway. And a lot of times the parents do pay back that money, even though it might be maybe a week. But it did allow that extra time for them to pay back. So I think that was a good approach. We did also, of course, the charging, there's no charging for a la carte items, so it's basically for a reimbursable meal, one meal per day. So that is one thing that we make sure we have in place in all schools. And the one thing about negative balances at the end of the school year, they cannot be carried over as part of the National School Lunch Program. And what happens is that money that is at the end of the school year that's in a charged negative balance has to be turned over to the general fund. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying to keep it as low as we could. In past practices, we would kind of like shut off charging like a week before we had the last day of school, which was even harder to deal with students that forgot to bring money in. So this year we didn't have any shutdown date. And I kind of looked at there's a couple of graphs that I had on the second page, and charges from June 9th to the last day of school totaled $2,700 for the district, which, so last year we might not have had as many charges or zero charges, but I looked at the balances at the end, and a lot of those were paid back. So I think that was a good thing that we did allow the charging, but we did get paid back on a lot of it. So it did alleviate a lot of the stress that the staff had to deal with, and the students especially had to deal with. So I think that was a great thing that we did this year. If you look at the charge balances from the last 4 years, they are going up incrementally each year, and I think it's one of the harder things that we, a lot of times the parents either don't have the money to send in all the time or forget to do. So I think it's also important to make sure that we have the free and reduced applications out there at the start of the school year, and maybe send notifications home that they are available all year long. So, and I think that's about it. I had also included a charge policy that we generally had, but we kind of tweaked it a little bit to fit the the information that we had as well. So,
Cindy, you had some questions, comments?
Did I hear you say that we were able to not do the alternate lunch after
we
our last
eliminated the alternate lunch after that meeting in May.
That's excellent. That makes me so happy. So
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it really, I mean, I could kick a dead horse with that, but I think we all understand what that issue is. So
Yeah.
I'm really thrilled to hear that, and I think that's a huge win.
Yep.
for the district, for the children of this district especially. So
Absolutely.
thanks for implementing that swiftly and reporting this information back.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I forgot, Andy to Michael?
So maybe it's late. I'm trying to decipher your charge list here. So over $10 a year in, you've got numbers of students across the schools with what their balance was. That's pretty easy to figure out that those are the ones that you still have outstanding apparently. When you say charges from June 9th to the last 2 weeks of school, there were charges of a total of $2,704.
Right.
How much of that was paid back?
So my reason for doing that was prior to this year, if at June 9th we started the no charging policy, they wouldn't have been allowed to charge their meals. So $2,700 may not have been taken in by our district for selling a meal if they were denied to charge at that point.
So all that was taken back in, though?
A lot of it was, yeah.
Oh, see that?
Yeah.
See, to me, opening it up to charging and things like that is good because you want to allow them to do it.
Yep.
But understanding what's not been able to be, recuperated or gathered from parents or students is important to understand because you want to understand where the problems lie. Is it an issue where the parents truly can't afford and maybe they should be looking at, more support for the lunch, or is it just people trying to get around the system and stuff? So for me, seeing that much charging, understanding how much we get back and where the potential pitfalls are is important to understand. So,
absolutely.
Michael, then Cinda?
Thank you for the report. I had a follow-up question, maybe, I'm not sure if you've addressed it already, but in the last meeting, we talked about the hands being stamped. If they had a...
Yeah, we don't do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for confirming.
Yep.
Well, a couple things. I want to kind of, I'd say add some clarity to something Andy said is getting around the system. I think when I think of the last 2 weeks of school, I think of the blur that is the last 2 weeks of school between parents, children, and finals, and especially at the high school where you're probably seeing the majority of that, and just a very, what I'll call atypical school day that comes at the very end of school because of prep for finals and things like that. That it's probably an oversight because you're so focused on what you need to get done.
Yeah.
So I would have to say that, that's probably a lot of it. There's only one thing I looked at on this letter that kind of caught my attention, and I hope we can find a way of doing things maybe a little differently, and it's the second sentence of the first paragraph. And that's a cashier will tell students verbally when their accounts are running a low balance. I'm not sure if I had my druthers, I'd rather that the staff doesn't have the students.
It's not a negative balance. It's
Low
say
balance.
they have like $6 left. They'll say you have $6 left in your account, so that it's kind of like verbal. As they're leaving, that's what they would do, and then that would.
But not a
alert us.
negative balance.
Not
though.
a negative balance, no.
Okay.
It's not like you owe money, pay up tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, no, just as I said, when it comes to collections, I'd rather it stay
Yeah.
between the adults. So that's always kind of my thing. So
It's just it's a little, just a nudge saying, hey, you're getting low on your account, tell your parents to, you just send a check in or something. And if that's okay.
no, and you know what? Just if we get feedback, we'll let you know. And if you get feedback from staff on questions, let us know too, and we'll keep a dialogue on that. We just want to make sure it's done in a way that the kids aren't, kind of like, hey, you're kind of getting low there, just so it's not a collections attention getter, I guess.
Yep.
So that was my only concern. But the rest of it, I think it's definitely where we wanted to go as a board. The one thing I would take, Part A kind of drove Part B in my math. And I put a note, charge limit 2 weeks of meals versus $20 because that flat number. And if it was elementary, it'd be $25. The 275 level, which is upper L and middle, would be $27.50, and high school at the high rate would be $35. Or actually, I think it's 35. Yeah, $350 times 10. So with that, I think if you do 2 weeks, that gives enough time for that's a pay period. Okay. So I think that might be something to consider. Yeah. So that was just my feedback. Cinda?
I just wondered if that might be hard to administer when you're talking about school by school, and then you got one kid in one school and one kid in another, and
I think with this set, I mean, we can always adjust it, but I think with that $20 limit, I think it's pretty reasonable, and I think we've gotten quite a bit of payback at that point. I mean, we can relax it a little bit so that we're not getting into that point where the student's in a position where they're not going to get anything. They will get fed, that's for sure.
Okay, and that's where, you know, I guess if I were to say, again, I'm looking at that 2-week period as that pay period, and that's really where a traditional pay period. So if it was 30, it would be the midpoint between the elementary and the high school level.
Sure.
So it might be something to consider as we plan our benchmark. And if it becomes an arduous task and it becomes a higher collections, you know, we can always look to adjust it. But that's just my thought on it, was give it what I would call a 2-week pay period to make whole, and that will give them the opportunity to not get into arrears.
Yeah.
So that was just my only thought. So, Cinda?
yeah, I mean, I would just say continue to keep us posted on that and what
absolutely.
we can do to help, because, I mean, there may be some other creative things. I think I mentioned last time, you know, maybe we would withhold the report card until it's caught up, like we do with overdue library, or with books that haven't been turned in or something like that. But continue to keep us posted, whether it's tools that you need or anything that we can do to help. But I think that it sounds like your staff is happy about it.
And I've worked with the principals and administrative staff. And, you know, in case there's a circumstance where there's an issue, we can deal with that separately. And then sometimes just, you know, the help with the principal's office helps us rectify that. So.
But what I'm hearing is that no children will be denied a meal.
Right.
No children will be given a cheese sandwich or an alternate meal.
Correct.
From going forward from whatever point after our last meeting.
Yes.
Okay, great. And then related to that is just on the meal charging procedure list that you distributed to us. I would just say if you could just make a mild update to the final copy, because you have in the second to last paragraph, you have the charge limit was increased to $20 to lessen the need for an alternate meal.
Okay.
I would just say
to eliminate the alternate.
Yeah, the charge limit was increased to $20 and the alternate meal was eliminated or something like that.
Yep.
Thank you. We're very happy, so very excited. And Marge?
I just want to make sure that we will put the policy then on the consent agenda for you on August 14th, and we've conferred, and we can wait that long just to let you have the time for consideration, but it would be printed as is, and we'll try it out and see, but we'll put it on consent for the 14th of August. Yes?
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And now we're on to item number 6, which is the outcome from water testing for 6 schools with Matt.
Thank you. At one of our meetings previously, it was asked if we could retest the water at the beginning of the summer months. The test was done of all 6 schools. You have the big report in front of you, probably around 40 pages with a lot of detail on here. But the essence was on May 17th, RPF, which is our company that we use for water, asbestos, any kind of hazardous materials testing was contracted, and they did a total of 6 samples at each school. And it was asked if we would, instead of just PFOAs while they were here, test for a variety of common things that would be found in water. So they wound up testing for coliform, arsenic, uranium, radon, VOCs, PFOAs, nitrates, and chloride. The sentence they used here: after collection, each water sample was labeled and packaged in a cooler and delivered to Nelson Analytic Labs of Manchester. The results basically of the testing is that they were all within either the New Hampshire or EPA limits of recommended guidelines. So you have all the detail here of each, and then on Appendix A, you basically have a summary by school of each of those categories that were tested and what the results were. If you're looking at the PFOAs in particular, they much resemble the last test we did after the MVD started mixing the wells and everything like that. Nothing has gone up, nothing has really gone down. So this is just for your information. From a technical standpoint, I can't answer all these questions. If you would want something like that, I would have Roger or one of the other people from the company come by and sit down and speak with you.
Naomi?
This may fall under the you can't answer it bit, but the last column.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit more about what's that one?
We want you to pronounce it first.
Try whatever it is.
Trihalomethanes.
Yeah, I was very curious, so I did a little Google search before I came here tonight. And what it is, it's a combination of chlorine mixed with organic materials. That's what causes that type of a chemical. And a UG is a microgram, which is 1/1,000,000th of a gram. So all I know, it is a substance. It's caused by the additive of chlorine to water mixing with any natural organic materials that creates this chemical that's in the water.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Michael?
First, thank you for doing the reports. Happy to see that obviously they have declined. I think that's obviously a combination of the wells being shut off and but I'm concerned that last column, considering that some of them are double what the state level is supposed to be. Is this something that we could reach out to the water district and ask?
Yeah, after I received, that's why I Googled it, because I knew somebody was going to question, because it is double what the state is, and the EPA doesn't have a standard. So that's something I'm going to give these results after you have seen them tonight to the MVD and ask the question, what would be the cause of, and is this normal, and what are your thoughts, to get some reaction from them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Andy?
I just, because everybody at home is probably watching this going, and everybody's pretty focused on PFOAs. You said they're about the same, so just so people watching at home know, the numbers across the district range from 15 to 17 in terms of the rate, whereas the state is obviously 17, and even in states like Vermont, I think it's 20 or whatever. So we're under even what we've seen as the more stringent standards based on that sample. So.
And actually, I think I did this last time, was I ran through the report by school. So for the people at home, I'll just do that. So Thornton's Ferry came in at 15, Merrimack High School at 15, Mastrocola Elementary at 15, Mastrocola Upper Elementary at 15, Merrimack Middle School was 17, and Reed's Ferry was 17. And the font is too small, so I did have to get my glasses for this part of the meeting. The biggest concern I think we had as a board was that we had tested the last time and we were still in a drought status. So what has the water being driven down from the surface done to impact numbers? And at this point, I think we have a lot to feel kind of comforted by. So, but we always have to keep an eye and be diligent. Cinda.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I think for the people watching at home, you ran through the numbers, but the EPA has set a standard of 70. So when we're in the range of 15 to 17, we're well below the 70 standard set by the EPA.
And also below the Vermont standard of 20, which is what people are using as sort of a benchmark. So even in that regard, it's...
Okay, yeah. That's what you said was the Vermont, right?
Yeah. So are there any questions or comments on the status of our water quality? Seeing none, I think we can feel good going into the school year, so thank you very much for the effort. And now we're on to item number 7, which is a request to conduct an architectural review of the feasibility of putting an addition to the high school for SAU Special Services offices. And so I'll give it over to Marge and Matt.
So I'm just going to begin by referring to a document that was placed in your packet. As you know, every year the Merrimack School District goes before the planning board to share our capital improvement plan for 6 years. And when we received the planning board recommendations for last year, which came in December of 2016, in the cover page, this statement was made: all options should be considered for the consolidation of special services / SAU offices, including consideration of an addition to the high school in place of the current building. Given that recommendation by the planning board and the fact that this year we will go back before the planning board after we have made our presentation to the Planning and Building Committee and to you, it seemed that now might be an appropriate time to really focus on this particular recommendation. So I set the stage for you, and then I want to turn it over to Matt about what we're proposing to do.
Yeah, what we would be proposing to do is to obtain the services of an architect, perhaps a firm that's worked with us before on various projects and has helped the Planning and Building Committee look at the question of, is the upper elementary school an appropriate place for a central office? So that's what we'd be looking for direction, if you wanted to go in that direction, to formally do a study on putting an addition on the high school that would be the future central office, see if it would be cost effective and see if it would be something that we wanted to look at. Like the superintendent did say, this is the official memorandum from the planning board, and it was stated there that this is something we should look at. So I just want to know, how deep do you want to dive into looking at this?
Okay, so I think I have Michael and Andy.
Couple questions. How much is it going to cost for?
Well, a lot of it I can get pro bono, but we're looking at probably around $3,000 to $4,000 to do this type of study.
I guess for me, I mean, and I'm just going off of hearsay at this point, so I'm not going to say that it's factual in any way, but to retrofit a high school that's how old at this point?
Well, it would be the 2000 edition where the addition would go off, so that would entail leveling the greenhouse first before you could build the addition, because the greenhouse would be in the way of the addition.
Right, so yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out so if you add to the high school, there's a possibility of having to retrofit the whole entire high school based off of codes that might be. My preliminary conversations with the people I was referring to said that absolutely that would entail a complete review of every single code and where you were at point in time, and have to trigger a retrofit of the entire high school, be it fire alarms, sprinkler systems, whatever. It would trigger that. Is that a service that the town provides? If you were to go to the town building and requesting what codes would have to be upgraded or met? I mean, I'm just trying to think of a possible different angles, and you might have already done this, but we went to the town and asked them what would need to be met if we added to this building. Would they give you the list of everything that would need to be done? Is that
be a question I could ask? Would there be a specific?
I'm just thinking if the list is long,
it may be all of them.
Yeah, we've got an answer then that we don't need to spend $3 or $4 if this list is long. Right. So just a thought.
Yeah. Andy?
So I had the pleasure of sitting next to Matt and Marge at the planning board discussion. We on a time limit? Oh, okay. The bottom line is, I think everybody understands that if you add on to the building, you're going to open the Pandora's box of potential code changes that are required for a building that's, that part of the building that's, 17 years old, but the other rest of the building, which is significantly older. I think that a logical person would assume that adding on to the high school is more expensive than building a standalone building. But it was obvious at the meeting that the planning board is of the mindset that we need to understand what the cost would be to build an SAU SPED capable area to the same standards that all of our other buildings are built. It doesn't mean that they're expecting us to do it, but the bottom line is that that's what that planning function expects us to do. So the bottom line is, if we ever want to get planning board's approval to any of our options, if we do not jump this hurdle, they will block us. That's my opinion of having gone through this.
Cindy DeMichael?
So, have we brought this to the Planning and Building Committee yet? And what was the response from?
So me as liaison, do you have something? The bottom line is the Planning and Building Committee also believes it's not necessarily the best approach, but we all realize this is something we are being asked to do by a board, a body in the town, to just get a figure about and the impacts.
Okay.
In my industry, we call this, well, I won't use the expression, but it's.
So it's, I get it. I mean, I get it. So I think Mark.
So if we can do something pro bono and get the information, to me, I think that's what the planning building committee would expect, no more than that to happen, I believe.
As inexpensively as possible.
As inexpensively as possible, yes.
Michael?
I do believe last year we cut soccer goals out of the budget that we had to because we were trying to cut dollars, right? That was $1,200. So not this past one, the year before. Right. So we're talking possibly $3 to $4 grand to do something that's possibly useless. And I'm going to put it out there that we're going to spend $3 to $4 grand. If you can do it free, go nuts. But I cannot approve $3 to $4 grand on something that I think is going to be wasted money. And I know it's only $3 to $4 grand, but that's soccer nets, that's field hockey nets, that's other stuff. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to approve $3 to $4 grand unless you can tell. The town should be able to tell you the list is all these things that you're going to have to approve, and we're going to be able to say it's not feasible. So,
well, it's just not the upgrades of the building itself. It's the actual design and how that design would fit into the addition of the high school and how that would look. I mean, you'd have to have brick and bar joists and everything like that versus a wood frame stick built structure. So obviously there's a cost per square foot increase on that alone. Whether or not you could put the addition on the end of the high school where the main gas lines come into the building anyway. So there's a lot of other detailed work to be done, and I could do my best to get this for very minimal cost due to the ongoing long-term relationship we've had with this company.
I mean, I'm just putting out there that we can go very simple and just ask for the list, and I think the list is going to show that it's not feasible. And all the other stuff that needs to be done can then be said we don't need it. I mean, to me, it makes no sense at all to put it onto the high school. So,
Marge?
I completely understand what you're saying. I hear you loud and clear. And I think this effort, we're putting this before you, is because we are trying to be in support of the Planning and Building Committee, who has worked arduously on this topic over a number of years. And so you try desperately to listen to the public whenever you're in its midst to hear what might be a barrier to going forward. Because the fact of the matter is you cannot continue to put something out there either to be voted on and have it negated and then have someone say, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. So we've really, over a period of time, just tried to be good listeners and try to do what it was ever necessary to try and prove a point. And interestingly, we cannot say it. We just don't have the expertise to be able to put this forward. So you remember that at one point in time, we actually hired NESDEC to come, and when it came, it looked at the buildings, but at that particular time, it was thought that our offices should go in the upper elementary school, and so we actually had a focus on that, but we did not focus on putting addition onto the high school. I don't even think that was even a part of the conversation. So I think the interesting thing is that Andy and Matt were actually before the board itself, and I sat back and just listened to the planning board. It was one person who mentioned it, but was the entire group that made the recommendation. So I consider the planning board to be a significant group, and I think it would not be wise for me not to raise this up before you, because I think we could easily come back in December. We've made no change, we've done no study, and it's like, well, you didn't take us seriously, collective. And that's why I say, in good conscience for the Planning and Building Committee, and just because we're trying to listen to our public, whether it's somebody that says, the minute you spend down your debt, then I'll give it to you, or I expect you to find out why you can't add on to a high school. Most persons are thinking that if you add on to an existing building, it is going to be much less costly. And what they're not realizing is it's not like a person adding on to his or her home, because we have to meet all these particular codes that go beyond what a town says. It's what we know at the state level. And so that's the piece that's very concerning.
Michael, were you finished with your thought?
Yeah, I just want to respond. I'm also listening to the taxpayers, and I think at this point, if you can't come back, if the town can just come back with a list, I think we might be able to get through that step first. If the town says, oh, it's only a couple, then I might support this $3 to $4 grand. But at this point, to me, it makes no sense. So.
Okay, I have Naomi, Cindy, then Andy. Or were you? I'm sorry. It's late. Sorry.
I'm just wondering if there's the middle ground of asking the capital improvement, this particular body, whether the information on the codes would be sufficient to their need prior to moving forward, whether that would, if we can find information on what would have to be brought up to code, and it is prohibitive, and we provide that information to this body and ask them if that satisfies their request prior to moving forward, then we'll know whether or not, before spending the money, whether we need to move forward. Does that sound, I don't know the machinations of this particular group well enough to know if that would be a fit, but.
Go ahead.
I think we could also ask the chairman of that committee or whomever to come before the board also to have a conversation about the concern about cost relative to what their expectation was. I mean, that's another way, perhaps.
Okay. Then Cinda, then I think it was Andy.
Mine's quick. It's a recommendation along the lines of what Naomi and Mike were saying, is maybe we take this in a two-step before we pull the trigger and spend the money. One would be the listing that Mike suggested of the code violations, and maybe even if we can...
Violations.
Not violations, I'm sorry. The code upgrades, I'm sorry, whatever. The code's needed for... It's late, I'm hot.
It's warm in here, people.
It's warm in here. I mean, the first thing would be, what are the codes that would have to be updated if we were to add this on? And then the second part is along the lines of what you were saying, which is some general information around if you typically add on this type of a building, maybe pulling a favor, to get some general information about, without it being a full-blown report and analysis, but maybe we can get a letter that might say, something basic about, anything that would support, why, that may not be the best option, or maybe a more expensive option, or whatever. And maybe we can take it in a two-part approach, start there, and if there's enough information there that's just giving us the thumbs down, then we go back to the planning board and say, this is the information we have so far. Now we have to spend several $1,000s to be able to find out, to do a more comprehensive feasibility study. And before we do that, we want to see if this satisfies, what you're asking for, and if we really need to take that next step.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. Just so you know, the high school as a whole, as a building, with Tom Tussaud working with the local fire marshal, has been keeping up with certain codes that they have requested of us over the years. So we don't have lots of violation, and it's not an old antiquated building that needs everything.
I corrected that.
So that may be one number, but the larger number or the gating factor is that because of the design of the existing building, you can't put that addition where you think you can put that addition. And so that would be something that I could talk to our architect and engineer to come up with a plan, show it on a piece of paper, just a sketch, schematic, what it would look like and what it would entail and what it would cost to reroute traffic in order to have appropriate exits for high school students in that building. So I could probably get most of that with minimal cost.
Because I think we can still be respectful, to their concerns and their suggestion without having to fork over that money.
See, I'm a little bit leery about just saying, hey, codes, a couple $100,000, there's your answer. Well, no, because you haven't costed out the building or hadn't looked at the building. So you haven't really kind of answered our entire question, like,
agreed.
What would it, so I don't want to be disrespectful of them. I'd like to go in there with an answer or a letter from,
Right.
let's say, Frank Marinese Architects saying,
It's two pieces together.
yes, correct, pair those together.
Well, you guys seem to be forgetting the oil lamps that illuminate the hallways that the fire marshal's been letting us get away with for years. But, but honestly, I understand exactly where the board's coming from. The one thing I keep in mind is that anything we do has to kind of get through the planning board. So if we're going to be doing a building project, it's going to have to get through the planning board. So the people that are asking for are the ones that we're going to have to ask something of. So I know that that's a fine line we always have to walk as we're navigating this. Whatever you can do pro bono is, of course, encouraged, appreciated, and applauded. Whatever needs to be incurred, give us an idea of what that would be. I think that'd be important. Pro bono is our friend. But the other thing, and I just want to keep in mind, is, why do we have this conversation about this building? And one of the things that was brought up by John Fabrizio was brought up by Planning and Building. It was brought up by Rich Hendricks in his presentations based on the work that was done for prior building vetting, is that when you're dealing with special education, we didn't necessarily want to bring them in an education building for some of the things that they need to accomplish. It's not the best conducive environment, and we're talking about what I would call the freest of movers, and that is the high school. And that's something that, as we, as a board, discuss, it's something we need to be cognizant of as we're being asked to do these things. That, we also have to advocate for how the student will be impacted by this type of development. And I know we've always been told it's not ideal. I think even as we talked about upper elementary school, it was not necessarily ideal. At the high school, I think you're dealing with definitely more of a free roaming audience because of their electives and study halls and labs and all that. So, you're definitely dealing with, a different environment. So for that reason, I think we always want to keep that in mind too, and keep that in front of the public, that we keep that in mind as we're discussing this facility and its function. So whatever you can do pro bono, let us know. If costs are incurred, it sounds like it's discouraged by the board. I'm not sure forbidden's the word, but it's definitely not smiled upon. But, just if it's going to be a cost of thousands, we definitely want, I think, a hand on it before we go forward.
I will see what I can get with a limited outlay of funds, lest I incur the wrath of Mr. Thompson.
Well, amongst others.
Okay.
Cinda.
A third part to, I think, that initial discovery, thinking about what you just said, is maybe even a letter from John Fabrizio outlining some of the special education concerns regarding that type of a thing. So you've got the three pieces, and maybe that would be enough.
Oh, Andy, thank you. You've got the floor.
Bottom line is it's money. We need to show the cost of retrofit, the cost of building. And it doesn't have to be accurate. It can be a square foot cost and thing, because I think everybody in this room knows that you're going to overshoot the cost of building a stick building, which has been proposed, by at least 3 times to do this sort of a structure, that they're there. I think that is the bottom line of what the planning board needs to hear. I think the code upgrades are important. I think what special ed has to offer is important, but cost is the primary one. You can get around logistics, but it's all money. You know, move the hallways, you know, add the upgrades. So what's another couple $100,000? When you add it on to 6 million or 5 million, that's the message. Anything, but I mean, it's scope and scale. It's scope and scale is what it's all about. So get an estimate, back of the napkin, no cost. Get somebody to sign their name saying this is a square foot cost to do what you're asking, not even take into account. I think that may be enough.
My gosh, Andy, there should be a mic drop, but they don't work like that. So, very good stuff. So, are there any other questions or comments about? No, Michael. Andy gets the last word on this agenda item. I'm sorry.
I forgot to put the. God damn.
Thank you, Andy. So I guess we're going to go on to item number 8, unless anyone has objections, which is the approval of the June 19th, 2017 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Made by Michael, seconded by Naomi. Are there any edits to the minutes? I had 2. Page 6, line 270. And it's, I just want to, it says, Chair Barnes asked about supplementary materials, and it's, the thought is, supplementary materials the district is developing, to support areas of curriculum not supported by the new program. So just as we supplemented everyday math, we'll have to supplement this. So, you know, what are we doing to supplement those? And then page 10, line 457, which is, not the last page, whoops. And so the approval for this project will come from the town council, not town meeting. That's in April. Doesn't need to go that far. And those are my edits. Anyone else have any? Seeing none, we'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. And the motion carries 5-0-0. Wait, nope. I'm sorry. You abstained. That's right. I do remember that. So 4-0-1 with Cinda abstaining. So we're on to item number 9, which is the consent agenda, and I will turn it over to Mark.
Okay, and on consent tonight, we have the following educator resignations. Kathy Stone, science teacher at Merrimack High School, and Alejandra Costas Armada, oral language teacher at Merrimack High School. In addition, we have the following educator nominations. Ronald Beck, music teacher at Merrimack High School. Emily Carter, that is the truth, Emily Carter.
But no relation, not same person.
No relation, not the same person. With the same spelling, I might point out of Emily. Emily Carter, world language teacher at Merrimack High School. Monica Kohler, science teacher at Merrimack High School. Lisa Hargraves, special education teacher at Mastrocola Upper Elementary School. Cecilia Lashan, library media specialist, Mastrocola Upper Elementary School. Lindsay McElhaney, special education teacher at Merrimack Middle School. Stacy Papp, part-time kindergarten teacher at Reeds Ferry School. And Susan Stubbs, part-time preschool teacher at Reeds Ferry School. And the approval of the 2017 wellness policy and removal of 2012 wellness policy.
Did I have a motion? Andy?
I move we accept the consent agenda as read, including the approval of the wellness policy and the removal of the old one.
Is there a second? Seconded by Naomi. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. The motion carries 5-0-0. On to 10, which is other correspondence. I think we were all in individual receipt of a correspondence from a trade school. that was interested in knowing more about our district. I've redirected them to administration and how to navigate with guidance as appropriate. So we are good there. And then I did get a communication from a parent that had questions about the 2 different Lego teams at Merrimack Middle School. Are there any other correspondence for the board? Seeing none, are there any comments from the board? Andrew.
So this is a little bit of a fall on my sword, but also a little bit of a request to learn from it. And maybe it's the heat, maybe it's the time of summer, but I found myself during the agenda item talking about the partnership with the community college that I was potentially more critical than I should be for a popular and good, beneficial new program. But I also felt that I had many questions that were deep to the way the program would be implemented. I didn't have some of the background that folks on this side of the table had about during tours and getting information. I felt that in front of some very well-meaning people from the community college, I asked some hard-hitting questions and questions about the way we as a district were going to move forward. So I felt uncomfortable during and afterwards that I wasn't showing the positive light maybe that I should to the good program that's brought forward. But I also believe that there's some precedent that we're setting with this program, and I had some questions that I wanted to bring forward. So I think that maybe what I'd like to see is at some point we have a topic where we talk about generally programs that are administered outside of the school, not necessarily the vocational ones, but the Running Start programs as well as this program here and what we might be doing in the future, because I'd like us to be consistent. I'd like us to understand what kind of things we're doing, because as we look at expanding programs that are using community colleges to replace what we do as a district, I'm not saying it's a slippery slope, but it opens a different methodology that we use for how we deliver sort of education to our students. So I think the program's great, don't get me wrong or anything, but I just found myself asking more critical questions than I'd like to in this. So just wanted to say that out in front of everybody watching. So.
Any other comments from the board? Forgotten communications? We've circled back a couple times. No, I think we're good. And on to item number 11, is there any new business to come before the board? Seeing none. On to number 12, which is committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Andy.
We have a non-committee report. So Rich Hendrick was in the audience for the portion about the school addition. The Planning and Building Committee tried to have a meeting during June, I think it was June, and did not have quorum, but the topic was to talk about the building and then preparation here, so they weren't able to present at this discussion. So I'd just like to say summer caught us with one of the boards. So.
And I'm sorry, Michael.
Parks and Rec meeting happened, I don't know, a couple weeks ago at this point. It's all blurring together. We celebrated Chris Christensen's service to the Parks and Rec Committee. He did retire, I guess, from the chair position and is no longer on the Parks and Rec. So that was one thing that went over. We also did discuss the property at the end of Babusick Lake Road. We have determined that there could fit 2 full high school regulation soccer fields onto the property. So now the next step is to actually go out there with a machete and kind of try to figure out if it's actually truly reasonable based off of just a quick walk to see if it's even dry or whatever where it's at. What? Nope, slope doesn't even come to effect with these two. The slope comes in after the field, so. But that's just where we're at this point. So it's a slow crawl, but kind of slowly moving forward. So the plan would be to, if we were to walk it, then possibly come in front of the school board and actually present that and then see what the next steps would be from there.
Any other committee reports? Seeing none, we do have Greater Woods tomorrow night, so I'll share something in a month from now. So we'll go on to item number 13, which will be quick, public comments on agenda items, and there is no public. Item number 14 is to sign the manifest, and then I will entertain a motion to go into non-public session per RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, sections C and E. Do I have a motion? Made by Michael. Do I have a second? Seconded by Cinda. Naomi, how do you vote? Michael?
In favor.
Cinda?
In favor.
Andy?
In favor.
And I vote in favor. Thank you and good night.